All right. Hey, YouTube, I'm Lucky, and we have an absolutely meaty Twab to cover today. So much Bungie news needs to be covered from this week at Bungie's article. First up, they are bringing back the Summoner. They actually made a video talking about Bungie bring back these weapons, and they sort of answered in a little ways, because the Summoner is being brought back, and there's a new mystery weapon along with that, which is really exciting, and a few other weapons that we're going to go over. Let's start from the very beginning of the Twab, though. Okay, they first talk about Ritual, Vanguard, and Crucible. They're going to be changing the activity reputation gains, essentially. You're going to be getting more reputation from doing these activities because they feel like people aren't getting enough as they're doing these activities. So that's pretty exciting. Obviously, the Summoner's making a return. I feel like weaponry is the thing I'm most excited for in Destiny. This is going to come back with trials in the Witch Queen, and they also mentioned another mystery weapon. So they're not trying to give away all of their cards just yet. Along with that, they actually do throw in here, but with the Gambit revamp coming in the Witch Queen, that was pretty subtle, but that's huge. We actually haven't had a full confirmation as far as, I mean, I'm covering all the news here. I haven't seen a full-on confirmation of the Gambit revamp, but this was like 100% confirmed. The Gambit revamp is coming in the Witch Queen, so is that with the very launch of it? I mean, that's what it would seem like they're saying, so I'll leave you to decide with that down in the comment section below. That's really exciting stuff, though, if that does go live with the Witch Queen. Along with that, they're doing a bunch of Nightfall changes. They have a section of Vanguard Ops. There's going to be a new modifier that's coming out. It's actually called Acute, and this one's pretty crazy, which will increase player damage taken from a specific element by 50% and increase the player damage done by 25%. So you're going to do more damage with that element, but you also would receive more damage from the element. So that seems like it'd be a pretty crazy trade-off and could make for some pretty fun builds inside the Nightfalls, actually. So let me know your thoughts. What sort of builds do you think you'd take with that? The first thing that comes to my mind is, like, if you were to do this week's GM with Sepix Prime with, like, Risk Runner, you know, it has even more increased arc damage, but, you know, with the Risk Runner, maybe it could survive, and maybe the Risk Runner would just absolutely melt and mow through the ads. That'd be crazy. So, and then you could also use the Tarantula if we're going with an arc modifier, right? You could also use the Tarantula and end up melting stuff way faster because you have that arc linear fusion. That's just like the first thing that comes to my mind that I would be excited for if this was a thing in the game right now. I can't wait for this to come into the game, though. Moving on to the next topic, they talk about some Nightfall weapons returning. Now, these weapons right here, we have the Silicon Neuroma and the Duty Bound. If you are an OG early D2 player, you know what these are. Let me go ahead and pull these up here. We've got right here the Duty Bound, a 600 RPM auto rifle. This roll came with Ricochet, Zen Moment, Accurized, and Rampage. Now, obviously, the revamped one will have random rolls on it, and it'll be much different. We have the Silicon Neuroma, which has a snapshot and opening shot in the same slot, which is unfortunate because if those were in different slots, this thing would be crazy. Maybe that's what they'll end up doing in the long run. Who knows? But this was the Silicon Neuroma Sniper. Two very well-known and beloved weapons early on in the early D2 days. So those are going to be returning as Nightfall weapons. So I imagine those are going to have adept versions of them, which would be pretty exciting to see. Along with that, they're changing some big changes to the lost sectors. Okay, there's only going to be one lost sector day instead of two, but it's going to have difficulty options. So this is overall a good thing, but kind of a bad thing, because if there's only one, then that means there's not going to be two different exotic armor pieces that you can chase for. Like right now, you can do exotic gauntlets and exotic helmet, and every day it rotates, right? But if there's just one, then there would just be one exotic armor type, like just gauntlets for the day, etc. So this is a good thing, I guess, but kind of sucks we won't have nearly as much options with that, or as much variety in exotic armor pieces. Moving on to the next part, though, we have Crucible. A bunch of things they talked about. I talked about how they lowered the respawn time in Crucible, or they increased it to 7 seconds, and then they re-lowered it. So they changed it, and then they lowered it back because it ended up not really affecting things. The whole problem that was happening with this Crucible update was that people were getting killed by a roaming super, and then respawning fast enough to get killed by the same roaming super again. And so they wanted to change that by increasing the respawn timer, but it didn't effectively work. It especially also it compiled poorly with the recent sandbox changes, so they decided to revert it altogether, so we're back to the old OG respawn timers. Next up, we're talking about HDR, and I do not know anything about HDR monitors or what's going on here. I literally had to Google this, so I pulled up right here if you guys have this. An HDR monitor stands for High Dynamic Range, a color technology that enables a monitor to display a broader spectrum of colors and contrasts. I don't know if y'all are out there rocking HDR monitors at all, but apparently they're getting some updated settings for HDRs, and you could look at the game and it would look pretty crazy, amazing. Like, I don't know, I just rock a normal monitor, 1080p and 240 hertz monitor personally. Next up, they talk about Bruno is a new community manager. He's an international community manager, so he's overseas. And if you want to follow him on Twitter, they got that link there. He talks a little bit about himself. Then we talk about the ban hammer, which was a topic that I brought up, which was this right here. Bungie reverses the ban on player due to process hacker program. So they go into detail about what happened there. And there was apparently 68 people that were banned due to this program process hacker. But out of 61 of them, it's been reversed. So apparently 7 of them were using process hacker and actually hacking, I guess. So I guess that's nice that they reversed that. It's definitely a pretty interesting situation. Obviously, there's going to be, you know, in their efforts to try to keep things locked down and keep cheaters out, people are going to get banned unjustly. But like I said before, hopefully they have a good appeal system where they actually fully review things, because it definitely would suck to be those 68 players that got banned and they had done nothing wrong. They just had a program on their PC called Process Hacker. Moving on to the next part, they actually go over Bungie names. And eventually we're going to be able to change our names again in Bungie like we used to. Here we go. In Destiny 2, rather, like we used to. Since the Bungie name feature went live, players have been asking when they can change their name. We're investigating a way for players to change their Bungie name in a future update and are currently targeting a date close to the Witch Queen's launch date. Upon an investigation into a player's real name being used for their Bungie name, we have determined that this issue occurs when a player sets up a Steam account with an email containing their name, doesn't change their Steam account name upon activation, so it takes on the email address name and then doesn't add in a Steam display name. If Steam doesn't have a display name or Bungie name feature, will take Steam's account name to use as a Bungie name instead. So this was a huge privacy issue that I actually covered. It was a top trending Reddit post that was essentially people are getting their doxed because of this. They're getting their full name put in as their Steam name, and then, you know, people are able to find out who they are, where they live, and send them hate and harassment and stuff like that in real life. So it was a big issue, and they addressed that there, which is a good thing. So 3 of the videos that I've covered in the last week were covered in the Twab, which is pretty funny. So make sure you're subscribed to this channel with notifications on, because clearly I am ahead of the news, okay? I'm literally, half of the Twab is covering videos that I've already covered on my channel, right? And then they go on to claim your rewards and stuff of that nature. Then we've got the movie of the week. And then on top of that, we have the artist of the week. Some very talented artists here, of course. And then scrolling down to the bottom, we have this, the last bit of here. We're less than a month away from the launch of the Witch Queen and showing Miss Savathun who is boss. The excitement is real, and team can't wait to hear your thoughts on what's coming in hot. For those that may need a little refresher, feel free to mosey on over to our product page and center around the next expansion to make sure you're all caught up and ready to rock. There it is, and that is from Dirty F and Hippie on Twitter. Hippie is the new community manager, and that's your weekly Twab. Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. What are you most excited for? Me personally, you already know me. I'm all about the weapons, so I want to get a god roll of the Silicon Neuroma. I want to get a god roll of the Duty Bound, and if the new revamped summoner has a new perk pool, I want to get a god roll of the new summoner and whatever that mystery weapon was immediately. Like that, I'm going to make videos about that very soon here, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. That's the Twab for this week. That's the Bungie news. I'll see you next week. Later.